Hello, everyone. I am Ezekiel Bruni, general writer, tech guy, and nerd, sometimes consultant, here on behalf of VPN Mentor to talk about VPNs and video games. Oh, one of my favorite topics. I don't know if you could tell. We want to talk about why you might want to use a VPN when you're gaming, and of course, which VPNs are the best for the purpose at hand. So let's get right into that. As soon as you like, comment, subscribe, maybe hit the bell notification icon, and generally just, help us beat the YouTube algorithm if you find this video useful and helpful. Another couple of things you should know, we will have links in the descriptions with full reviews of all the VPNs we're talking about today. These reviews will have things like all of our, most detailed speed tests, and all the streaming services they unlock, and all the details you could ever want. So, be sure to check that down below, as well as some other links and resources we'll be including. And now let's get on into this. So first up, what is a VPN? For you beginners out there, a VPN is a simple app that allows you to direct all of your internet traffic, or maybe just some of it, through another server, really. It encrypts all of your traffic so that your network administrators and internet service providers can't see what you're actually doing with your computer, which provides you a measure of anonymity. And it also allows you, usually, to decide which country you want to be browsing the internet from, as in it directs all of your internet traffic, for example, from Mexico to the United States, so it looks like you're playing your video games in the United States. You can also use this for streaming services, yes, and we actually have a lot of videos on that topic, so, check out the channel. Now, something you do need to know is that using a VPN will always slow down your traffic a little bit. Because all of your information is being routed to another server, it can make the literal physical journey that data goes on a bit longer, and thus it usually slows down your connection. Usually. I'll get into that. But now, let's talk about why a VPN can actually help you when you're gaming. You can actually increase your speed. I know. I was just talking about how VPNs almost always slow down your internet traffic, so what gives? Under certain circumstances, connecting directly from your computer to a specific gaming server, for example, doesn't work as it should. Sometimes the data will sort of take the scenic route, and you can actually shorten the distance between your computer and the gaming server, for example, with a VPN. VPNs can also help protect you from dedicated denial of service attacks. This is something that streamers often have to worry about, and also just anyone playing multiplayer games, as some games aren't very secure, they expose your IP address, and then people who want to cheat will hit you with a DDoS attack so that it slows down your internet connection and you can't play and they win by default. It's not cool. VPNs can also bypass throttling. If for any reason your internet service provider is throttling your internet traffic when you're gaming, VPNs can help you bypass that. And lastly, as mentioned before, you can use VPNs to game in just about any region. North America, South America, Europe, Australia, no matter where you are, a VPN can make your connection to those regions faster. This is most typically used with Asian-only MMOs, but it also helps people in sort of more remote parts of the world access more populated servers for every kind of game, including FPSs and MOBAs and all of that good stuff. So a VPN can actually improve your gaming experience, especially under the right conditions. And of course, it can help improve your security. And even when it doesn't actually speed up your connection, the other benefits might be worth a few milliseconds of lower latency, or ping, which I will explain in a sec. In a minute, I'll be showing you the tests I ran on ExpressVPN, CyberGhost VPN, and the cheapest VPN on the list, Private Internet Access, which unfortunately can only be accessed through this little window here. Kind of annoying. But I will be going through all of them and how they all performed with the games I selected. I basically played New World and Apex Legends. First I played them with no VPN, and then I played them testing all the VPNs. And why those two games? Because they both let you connect to specific servers, so in specific cities. So I basically always had a baseline of speed to work with. And I chose New World because it shows your input latency as you play, or it can. Your input latency is the measurement of how long it takes to send a signal to the server and back, and it adds the time it takes for you to like move your mouse, press a keyboard button, and see the result on your screen. Apex Legends didn't have anything quite that advanced. What it shows is ping, which is the simple measurement of how long it takes to send a signal to the server and back, and that's it. It doesn't take input latency into account. But I tested those two games on all of these VPNs, and, well, let's talk about the results, shall we? Now, one thing to note is that I won't be going through these VPNs as on a comparison basis. I won't be trying to show you which one's the best, but simply pointing out the strengths and weaknesses of all of them and showing you how they performed in my own tests. Okay, well, let's talk about my baseline tests. I played both New World and Apex Legends without any VPN. I averaged about 102 milliseconds of input latency on average in New World, with my character being in the US East servers and me being in Mexico City. Apex Legends averaged 45 milliseconds of ping, again, not counting input latency for, the mouse and keyboard and so on. And that is pretty solid for a first-person shooter. I was connecting to the Dallas data center for Apex Legends. All right, so let's move on and talk about the actual tests. First, I tested ExpressVPN, which actually lets you connect in 94 different countries, giving it the widest server coverage, server spread of any of these VPNs. Why is that important? Because it can help you access servers closer to you. So if all you want is some anonymity and decent speed while you game, and you don't need to access a specific region, having servers closer to you actually helps you to achieve that faster connection. I use the US Dallas server most of the time when gaming. It works on both PC and console. You can set it up on Xbox or PlayStation or even Nintendo Switch with a bit of manual configuration. And it has split tunneling on PC, which allows you to decide that you only want your game to run on the VPN server and you want to watch your local Netflix, for example, on the other monitor. Very useful. So those are all the main gaming-related features that you might care about. The actual tests, let's talk about those. I played a New World for a bit, and it went pretty well. It actually reduced my input latency a bit. I averaged around 95 milliseconds in general. It fluctuated a fair bit. In the actual average started around 100, but lowered over time. This is actually really impressive on the top part of the New World team, because I actually used to have much bigger differences in the ping. Playing without a VPN used to give me about 200, at least 200 to 240 milliseconds of input latency, and a VPN could lower it down as low as 100 to 160. It was huge, but ever since then, New World has gone and fixed their servers, darn them, and now the differences are much smaller. In Apex Legends, I hit a solid 50 milliseconds average. Now, this speed actually regularly dipped as low as 45, the 45 millisecond average for the baseline test. So that is actually really good. In a first-person shooter, a few milliseconds of difference, just like in the single digits, won't make much of a difference. You can run around and shoot people, and it'll be fine. I'm talking about video games, NSA. I'm talking about video games. Now let's talk about CyberGhost for a bit and the tests I ran on that service. It works on both PC and console again. Some minimal manual configuration would be useful for the consoles, Xbox and PlayStation. It doesn't have servers in quite as many countries as ExpressVPN, but it does have dedicated gaming servers in a few countries, Germany, London, the US, and in France. Now, all of the US servers are in New York, and I'll tell you how that went because I tested it on both New York servers and on the regular Dallas servers. Oh, you should also know CyberGhost does not have split tunneling, which is sad. But if you don't need to watch Netflix on the side, or you have another device to watch it on, that's fine. It'll work just fine. Now, in New World, the input latency averaged a respectable 100 milliseconds. That is actually still a little bit lower than the 102 millisecond rough average from the baseline test. It was fantastic. That was on a regular server connected through Dallas via CyberGhost. Again, my character's in the US East servers. For New World, I don't specifically know where they are, but they're on the East Coast somewhere. Now, on the dedicated server, that ping jumped quite a bit, but that's because the signal had to go further, so I sort of expected this. It averaged a solid 147 milliseconds, routing my connection through the New York dedicated gaming server, which is built on technology meant to make gaming faster. And, of course, back down to whatever East Coast server the game is actually running on. This, to be honest, is not terrible at all for an MMO. It's not great, for example, for a first-person shooter, but for an MMO, it works just fine. On Apex Legends, CyberGhost averaged a solid 49 seconds average, a little bit faster than ExpressVPN on the regular Dallas server connected to the Dallas data center. The Dallas Apex Legends data center, I should say. And that is a fantastic performance. I had a generally good time. Did not win every game, but a generally good time. On CyberGhost's dedicated VPN gaming server, Apex Legends actually performed pretty well, all things considered. I connected through, of course, New York, because that's the only gaming server they have, but I connected specifically to the Apex Legends New York data center, so that, they'd at least be in the same state, the same city, whatever, to try and make it a fair fight. Now, the ping averaged about 120 milliseconds, and that is not super good for an FPS. Now, it's not completely horrible. We actually won that game. And let me tell you, shotguns make up for ping issues in a big way in Apex Legends. But it is less than ideal if you're in somewhere like Mexico City, where I am. Now, private internet access is a pretty solid VPN, all things considered, with fairly decent server coverage, server spread, and it does have split tunneling on PC. It only sort of works on console. You have to actually tether your console to the internet connection on a laptop or desktop PC. It's a whole thing. It's not ideal, but if you're gaming on PC, then private internet access will work just fine. It is also quite cheap. It is cheaper than the other two options by, I'm going to say, a reasonable margin. It's definitely the budget option, but that doesn't mean it's less powerful. The tests actually went very well. I've connected again on New World through a Dallas server. Well, sorry, I should say that private internet access does not have a specific Dallas server. It just has a Texas server. Nonetheless, New World averaged 100 milliseconds of input latency, just more or less just like the rest of them, and it worked fairly well. It fluctuated a fair bit, but it was fine. It was just fine, and on a budget, that's great performance. Again, I connected to Apex Legends through the Texas server and the Dallas data center in Apex Legends, and actually averaged 48 milliseconds of ping. But that actually fluctuated quite a bit, so, don't expect the most steady ping, right? But it worked pretty well, and I have few complaints. Well, everyone, that's about it. Now, which one's the best? Well, we generally recommend ExpressVPN for just about everything, including gaming and streaming video, especially streaming from Netflix and HBO Max and so on when you're traveling. But honestly, CyberGhost also performs very well, and private internet access performed very well if you want a budget option there. ExpressVPN for all the bells and whistles, CyberGhost for the dedicated gaming servers, and private internet access for the price. Those are my recommendations. Again, you should take a look down in the description for links to full reviews of all of these services, as well as our coupon page, which can get you deals on your first month or year or 2 years of any of these VPNs and several other major VPNs as well. Now, if you found this video helpful, please do like, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, leave a comment, tell us how your experiences with gaming on VPNs has gone. We would love to hear from you. Alright, I had a great time making this video. I hope you had a good time watching it, and I really, really hope you found it fun. This is Ezekiel Bruni, signing out.